Continuing our journey through prototyping tools in Unity, you might encounter the need to create more complex shapes with a bit of smoothness or randomness, which is terrifyingly difficult to achieve in ProBuilder by only moving vertices or faces. Of course, you may create the most basic placeholders, for example for a piece of a ground, and then send them to your artist and hope that after they send you models back, everything will work the same way as it was before. But luckily for us, Unity has an implemented solution. So hey, this is Delph Compiler, and let's have a look at an interesting package for sculpting and texture painting in Unity called Polybrush. Great, so having previously created a scene in ProBuilder, we might now have a look at how we can improve its visual appearance using this new package. Okay, so first of all, we will have to install that. So we go to Window, Package Manager, and now in Unity Registry, if you're in Project Registry, you should have to switch to Unity Registry and find Polybrush here. Okay, so here it is. I click on Install and wait a few minutes to finish the installation process. Okay, so now make sure to install samples. We will need them right now. Of course, their functionality is kind of specific. I will tell you a bit later about them. So in the next projects, you might decide whether you want to install them or not, but if you want to follow along, just make sure that you import it. In my case, it's HDRP project. You may want to import it to standard Unity or to the URP, depending on your currently opened project. Okay. Now we can close the window and go straight to the functionality. So now, first of all, the same as with ProBuilder, we will have to open up the window. So we can go to Tools, Polybrush, yeah, we have the list of tools over here, Polybrush window, and it should open up the new window. Okay, I will drag it in here for you to be visible, and we have something like that. Of course, the same as ProBuilder, I prefer it to be stacked here, near hierarchy. So as you can see over here, we have a list of tools at the top. Yeah, we have 5 of them visible now. So the first one, if we select it, will turn on sculpting on meshes. So as you can see, you can change the mesh appearance, like modeling basically the mesh structure using sculpting tools. Yep. So next we have brush settings. So basically here we will configure how the brush will look like and how it will behave using those tools that we have over here. So for example, I'll turn on sculpting right now, and as you can see, we have a brush visible. First of all, first thing you may notice is if I place my brush here, hover over this window, we will see some vertices. Some of them are green, some of them are blue, but for example, on the floor, nothing really happens. This is because we are using vertex painting and vertex sculpting. So basically, if you don't have any vertices, nothing will change. Okay, so here I have a lot of them. I can go to ProBuilder in order to visualize them. Okay, I have a lot of them. So basically right now in Polybrush, I can modify their position. For example, if I click right now and drag it, we can see that I can move around those vertices of the selected model. Of course, this is not probably the way how you would like to use that. So I'll control Z back. But let's see what are the possibilities here to use. Probably first of all, let's change the test subject to a more proper one. For example, to the floor. Yeah, so we have a floor and more probably a ground. We'll have to add some hills over here, some bumps, some piles of something over near the edges of the courtyard. It is like most probable scenario. So for that, we will have to exit the polybrush editing mode. So for that, we will have to either select this tool once again for it to not to be blue. Yeah, as we can see here, blue is enabled. It's grayed out. It's not turned on. Yeah, so basically you can now select any other object, for example, using ProBuilder. Or the other way is, for example, if you switch to any other tool using keyboard, Q, W, E, R will allow you to turn the polybrush off. Okay, so I have the floor selected. Now I can go to face selection mode and of course to ProBuilder. If we select the faces that we want to subdivide, maybe you want to subdivide some of them, maybe you want to subdivide all equally. So I will just press subdivide faces and it will create several subdivisions. Of course, you might do that as many times as you want. I will probably stop here. I think it's the right amount of subdivisions. And now I can exit the ProBuilder tool, okay, and go back to Polybrush. So now, if I'll use sculpting, I will see that now I can increase the height of vertices on this floor. Okay. Maybe as you can see here, it's a little bit too much. Yeah, it's like hovering over the window. So most probably you will have to change that. So how to lower the terrain, how to lower the amount of sculpting we have. So left mouse button, click and drag, you paint over the height, increasing it, and if you press Ctrl and paint again, you will decrease the height. Yeah, so most probably something like this would be kind of nice in this case. Yeah, not the best thing, but looking pretty good. So what about exactly those configurations of brushes that we have here? We have several settings. Of course, we can create a setup of the brush that we have here for the later use, of course. For now, we will stick to the default one and I'll just change some configurations. For example, outer radius, as you can see here, is the outer circle, the white one. So basically, increasing that, we can increase the amount of effect of this tool. The inner radius, the inner circle, the blue one, defines the area where the effect of sculpting or any other tool here in Polybrush is the strongest. Okay, everything between the blue circle and the white circle, the inner radius and the outer one, is falling a bit down. The value of operation of, let's say, the strength is being reduced to 0 or whatever value you set up. Yeah, so basically, for controlling the radius of the outer circle, you have outer radius. For controlling the radius of inner circle, you have inner radius. Right? Strength is, of course, the amount of the offset you apply to a mesh. For example, in this case, yeah, the 1 is maximum amount. If you will add, move it, for example, to 0.15, it will go a bit slower. Yeah, so we can manipulate that value in order to achieve proper results, let's say. Yeah, for it not to jump too high instantly, but slowly moving a little bit upwards would be nice. And thing what I was talking about, the propagation of values between the inner circle and the outer circle is defined by a follow-up curve that we have at the bottom list of the brush settings that you can see here. So basically, what does it mean? On the inner circle, we have the value of 1, yeah, and the closer we are to the outer circle, of course, between them, of course, it goes down there. So basically, now here, when we are exactly at the position of outer radius, the strength of our tool will be at 0. Yeah? And of course, we can check that if you want. Yeah? So basically, if we decrease inner radius as much as we can, for example, something like that, we can see that the most affected vertex is the one in the middle, so it's the blue one. The closer then we are to the outer radius, the less colorful the vertices become. Okay, so now as we can see, if I try to do something, probably I'll have to increase the strength for it to be better visible. Okay, as we can see, the vertices that were around the outer space, outer circle, are almost not affected by this operation. Okay? So basically, you can configure its outer, inner radius and strength in order to feel comfortable using the tool. For example, here, it would be probably nicer to have a smaller radius. Okay, so I have a smaller tool. Does it have to be this, the strength, does it have to be 1? Well, probably we'll have to say check. Okay, it's probably too strong right now, so I can decrease that. Paint it around again. Well, it looks kind of nice. Probably still a bit too strong, but I have increased this area previously, so this is why it's not really working out, but okay. Something like that here. Probably a bit more in the corner. And that is pretty nice. Okay. Of course, you might want probably to increase the radius over here to create some more interesting shapes. For that, you have to, of course, play around with those different values and find what will do best. Of course, here it is just a question of your design. Yeah, whether you want, for example, the dirt to go on the pavement over here, right? Or not, or something like that. Yeah, whether you want to have a pond, for example, in the middle. We can try actually adding a pond, so control and decreasing the amount of the brush. So basically right now it's not working out, so I have to increase that. Okay, and now it's working a bit better. I'm not working on any details, I'm just adding, let's say, a general shape of the pond. Okay, something like that could be interesting. Maybe here. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's kind of nice. But for now, we've only looked at the brush settings. Exactly this tool, the sculpting meshes, has some more of them. Okay, actually, each of the tools, as you may see, has several settings in common, like brush settings and brush mirroring. Okay, so for now, let's look at brush mirroring, and then we'll go to sculpt settings specifically. Great. So what do we have here? In sculpt settings, first of all, we have a tick box to ignore open edges. What does it mean? If it is turned on, and for example, we would like to increase the amount of not connected edge, I will have to go inside the house. So if we try to change the height here, as you can see, everything inside the plane is moving, well, pretty much as expected, but everything on the outside, yeah, the outer edges, are staying in the same place. It is sometimes needed if you, for example, are making like tiled structure or something like that, and you want to let's say the outer sides of your object to snap perfectly together, and you don't want to move them. It is a proper way of doing that. Okay. In other cases, you may probably turn it off. Yeah, and it will still be fine. So we can see if I turn it off, I can modify the edge. Yeah, in my case, it doesn't really matter whether we do that or not. So I'll probably stick to the default configuration. Okay, and of course I don't need this changes to be here, so I can just Control Z them, undo them. Okay, and we go to the next configuration. We have brush normal is sticky. What does that mean? For example, here we can look at that. So we have a slope here, and as we can see, we are painting over the brush normal. Yeah, we have the paint direction, brush normal. Of course, we can change the paint direction. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, we are just using the average normal of faces where I hover my mouse cursor. So basically right now, if I press, it will increase our shape in exactly the direction of this blue line. Yeah, and it doesn't change until I move my cursor. For example, here it only changed. Yeah, until I'm not releasing the operation, it still does the same way as before. Okay, but if I turn it off, you can see, depending on where my mouse cursor is right now, the direction of normal is changing. It's not that consistent anymore. So once again, you may want to receive such chaotic shapes by just moving your mouse around, just expanding the object, or you may want to have a little bit more consistency by increasing only in a selected direction. It's up to you. Yeah. So here you can switch to that. As I mentioned earlier, we have direction set up. So basically, for now, we have brush normal as a direction. As you can see, it's an average normal or normal vector orthogonal to the faces that we have here. We can change that, for example, from brush normal to vertex normal, yeah, the average vertex normal of vertices, global y, global x-axis, and global z-axis. Right? So basically, if I change it to global y-axis, I will be able to move everything only upwards. Yeah, nothing moves to the sideway. And the same goes, for example, here. If I change it to x-axis, I will move it only a little bit to the side. Yeah, as you can see here, I'm moving only things to the side, creating such waves. So in case you need them, these configurations are here. And of course, if we change it to global X, we don't see any more those sticky normals that we have here. Oh, okay, we can go back to brush normals because I suppose it's like more intuitive way of sculpting. And the last thing that we have here on the list is called brush mirroring. What does that mean? For example, if you want to sculpt something the same way as it is on the other side, yeah, creating a symmetry, we can use this mirroring. Yeah, so basically, if I switch on X mirroring, we can see that now I have two brushes visible on the mesh. Yeah, the one is on the left side of it, the other is on the right side of it, depending on where is the center of the mesh. Yeah, so basically, right now, if I try to modify the mesh that we have here, this plane, it will be modified in a similar way on both sides. Yeah, of course, in this particular case, probably it's too much. I would not leave it like that, so I'll undo that and probably redo that. But still, something like that could save me some time, yeah, because I don't need to repeat the thing anymore several times. Yeah, I can just do it once and have it the same way over there and over there. Yeah. Probably it's not that needed because you may want to have a little bit randomness. So basically, such thing over here, those two repetitions probably would not do, yeah, in your project. But still, in order to a little bit fasten pace of your work, it's kind of a nice tool. Yeah, and of course, if you want to have exact mirroring, exact symmetry, it is good to use that. Yeah, okay. Of course, if we turn on z-axis, yeah, we will have 4 brushes right now. Yeah, so I can do that for 4 times faster, let's say. Yeah, and of course the y won't work in this case in this model because the plane is flat. Yeah, and there is nothing to be, let's say, mirroring to the y-axis. Okay, and of course the other thing that we have here, the other configuration, is the point of exact origin. Yeah, whether it's world or whether it's camera. What does it mean? If we have worlds enabled, it's the default value by default. So if we do that, we have, as I said, the mirroring axis in the middle of our plane. Yeah, so we have some plane somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it got mirrored. But in case I want to have camera, we can see that now, depending on where my camera is placed, the mirroring axis goes over there. Yeah, so it's just like in the middle of the screen. So once again, depending on what you want to achieve, you may use those two options. So now I will finish up the sculpting of this terrain and be back in several minutes. So right now, the ground that we have here in the castle courtyard, it looks a little bit like more ground than, let's say, a flat plane. Yeah, so it just kind of looks more realistic and more interesting to look at. Of course, in this case, it's only a question of visual appearance, but you may want, for example, to create, I don't know, different like rocks, yeah, different shapes of the rock, for example, yeah, or a platform platforms for you to jump on or whatever, yeah, depending on your needs. If it is too difficult to, for example, to model, yeah, but by hand, by moving vertices and edges, you may just use sculpting in order to drag things around to the top, to the sides, yeah, depending on normal axis or whatever, and you will get some interesting, let's say, more chaotic results. So the next tool that we have here is called smoothing mesh geometry. Yeah, as you can see, first of all, the brush settings are exactly the same as they were before. Brush mirroring, also the same as we were before. So now the only thing changes is the settings of this exact tool. Yeah. So basically, right now in these settings, we also have ignore open edges, the same as was before. So basically, if we want to affect the outer edges of the mesh, we can untick that. Yeah. In other cases, it won't be affected, and direction of normal just stays where we want this effect to be applied in both direction. Okay, so what does this effect do actually? If it goes somewhere, for example, over here, yeah, as you can see here, I even added a little bit of a pawns. Probably I will turn it off in order for you to see what's actually happening over here during sculpting. Okay, so I go to Polybrush using this smooth mesh geometry. If I try to smooth that, you may see that it starts modifying. Okay, it starts modifying the object. Yeah, you can see it removes those sharp edges, the sharp slopes, and make them more smooth. Yeah? Lowering high points and raising the lower ground. And of course, removing those sharp edges, sharp connections between faces, and making them more like a grid. And of course, depending on strengths, you will get different results. And depending on the size of your model, you will get different results. Yeah, for example, in here, if I do that on the window, it will try to smooth everything out as much as it can, and it just gets to a kind of a rock, yeah, something like that. But you can see it tries to create a little, like little quads over here. But of course, if you do that even more, you will not get anything good. It will just shrink as much as it can. Yeah, so in this case, this is not the correct model to use that on. Yeah, but for example here, if we are using exactly sculpting, we can actually do something extreme. For example, increase it too much over here until we get some strange appearing results. Yeah, something like that, for example. If you use smoothing right now, you'll see that it just does as it says. Smoothing everything pretty well in these cases. Once again, depending on what you do, what you want to achieve, you have this tool in order for smooth things out if something appeared to be too extreme or too sharp, for example. I will just undo it back in order to have the same thing that I did previously. Great. So the next tool that we have is called texture painting, yeah, or vertex painting actually. By enabling that, as we can see, the only difference that we have here is the color paint settings. So basically what we do here is we can paint a specific color over a specific vertex. Yeah. So first of all, let's go from the last tool actually right now. We have a float. Yeah. We have float configuration. If we use that, for example here, of course the strength, let it be 1 right now. Yeah, what does it do? If I select a color over here, for example this green, if I do that, you can see we have a preview of what will happen if I add this to a selected object. Yeah. In this particular case, the plane is selected, so basically what will happen if I flood fill the whole plane? Yeah, it will become green, okay? In our case, it is probably nice. Yeah, so I will try to do that. Left click, yeah, and now it should be colored properly. Yeah. So now the whole is green. The same we can do to other objects if we want them to change any color. For example, yeah, we go to vertex paints once again, float, yeah, and probably I will use like yellowish color, probably a bit whiter, Okay, that's pretty nice. So now I can just paint over objects that I want to be of the color that I've selected, basically. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that I will stick to be using this color later. It just means, okay, it just means that for now we can use it as, let's say, a ground layer of the color. Yeah, what will be here, the basic color. Okay, and that's pretty nice. Of course, I probably would need to color them again from the outer side. But that's a question of time. So now I have painted the outside of the castle, let's say, and okay, it's lagging a little bit for some reason. I've painted the outer side of the color, and now I need to paint, for example, the ground, and for that I have to turn off the color. I have to switch the color to other one. So how can I save this color in order not to lose that? There is a plus sign over here. If I press here, a new color will be added to our palette, and now I can simply switch, for example, to the gray color in order to paint the road, and our wall color, let's say, will still be visible over here. Yeah. And of course, for the other objects, we will add other colors. Okay, so now I've added basic colors for all the measures in our scene, and we can go further to explore other painting settings. Yeah. So the next second one that we have here, either from each side, is called fill. Yeah. The reason between flood and fill is that using fill, we can just fill one exact face. Yeah. So basically, right now, if we, for example, would want to change this legs, for example, of these barrels to a darker color, let's say to gray or to black, we can. Yeah, because if we use fill, as you can see, each face we are hovering over can be changed its color. Yeah, of course, depending on our position, it may be easier or harder to find exact face that we want to change, but still, as you can see, it does a pretty good job doing that. Okay. And of course, for example, what is needed to be done here is first of all coloring the roof, yeah, and coloring those windows. So basically, for windows, probably this color would be nice, yeah. But for example, for the roof, we'll have to create a new one because I don't see any good color here. Probably this one. Will it be great? Nope, I don't think so. The roof could be a bit darker. Yep, good. Oh, good enough. But even more darker. Yeah, something like that probably would do. Yeah, so basically what should I do right now is just color everything else that we have here. Yeah, all windows in one color, all roofs in the other color, and that's pretty much it. Probably adding a few details over here. Great, so it looks even better right now. So what we can do here next is to use, for example, brush tool, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a brush. Yeah, so basically, if I want to paint over, for example, this texture, yeah, I can pick any material like a sandy one or probably a dirty one. I can just, add a specific color to our plane over here in order to mix it up pretty nicely, yeah. But the only thing is that it's the transition over here is probably too sharp, yeah. It's like too harsh changing over there. So basically what we can do in order to omit that is to reduce the amount of strength. So in such cases, we like, let's say, adding a little bit of alpha to the color. With 1, strength is 0 alpha, but 0 is maximum value of alpha, right? So basically, right now, I'm just applying only half of the color to a specific vertex, yeah? So in order to achieve the full color, I will have to click several times, but it will allow me to smoothly paint around those different spots, yeah? So basically you can try adding something over here, playing around, not trying actually to think what exactly would be better in each particular case. Most probably I would better reduce the radius or remove the road and try to paint underneath or something like that in order to get them good results. Yeah? Probably a bit darker should be over here near the castle itself. Maybe, but that. But that's once again, it just depends on what you want to achieve. If you are not really a fan of playing your game, if it is not really, let's say, looking visually appealing, it is exactly the, let's say, the place where you will need to change that. Yeah, you can do that. You can change that if you want, of course. Okay, something like that, and probably a bit of sand over here. Okay, but not a sand. Here it is, near the pond. So let's say something like that would be nice. Okay. So, yep, something like that pretty well describes how the texture, the vertex paint in this case, works. So the next tool that we have is kind of important one because standard Unity lacks that, is called scattering. It's used for scattering prefabs over the, for example, the terrain or other objects. Yeah, of course in terrain you have the possibility to scatter, for example, trees or bushes or grass, but in this case you may do that exactly the same, but each game object can be used as a separate game object. Yeah, so first of all you will have to add a prefab here. For now, I have no prefabs, but I have a ProBuilder, so I will make quickly, for example, an object of a grass. Yeah, why not? Okay, so now as I have prepared a prefab, it is here hidden. I've also managed to screw things up, so I have to redo the coloring it once again. But still, let's go back to Polybrush, go to Scatter Prefabs, and I can now drop our grass prefab over here to the current palette. Yeah, so we have it here. It's called grass. Okay, the frequency is 50. The frequency means how much appearance should it have. Randomized scale, yeah, most probably the grass would have randomized scale, so basically here the higher value would be somehow a little bit less than 2, and the lower value a bit more than, for example, the half. Probably would be nice to use that. And random rotation, okay, rotation over X, probably a little bit. Rotation over Y, also probably a little bit. over Z, yeah, and over Y, it can be rotated any, let's say, angle it wants, yeah. Okay, so I've just set up the prefab that has been added in order for it to be drawn finally over the, for example, of the plane, yeah. So what we have else in these configurations? First of all, we have a configuration to use pivot. Pivot is an origin point. Yeah, it's an origin point of our prefab. For example, we want the object not to get calculated, the origin of the object not to be calculated by the center of it, but to be predetermined in advance, and this origin should be used. Yeah, in this case, we'll use pivot. So basically right now, it is exactly the same case because I've set up the origin of our prefab exactly where I want the grass to hit the ground, okay? So the next thing is to set up, to enable actually, if you want to hide an object inside of the one that you have had. Yeah, so basically if we have this terrain, I hit on it, if I draw something, yeah, for example like here, I can try to do that. Okay, first of all I have to enable that object. If I try to do that, it will add, okay, probably rotation was too much, but still, as you can see, there are 3 objects right now. If we go back to hierarchy, on the ground we have 3 grasses, yeah, 3 objects of grass, 3 polybrush clones, yeah. So basically what we have here is a possibility to change that. If we enable it, it will just be added to the whole scene. In this case, it looks much more tidy if the grass, for example, is hidden underneath the ground, yeah. Avoid overlap is a nice setting which allows you to prevent models being overlapped here. Yeah? For example, like this, if I do that paint over here several times, then several models will appear in this particular space. Yeah, if I want to remove that, of course, control and drawing will do the thing, but enabling avoid overlapping prevents me from doing such thing. Yeah, it calculates the boundaries automatically and just doesn't allow me to paint several of grass objects or any other objects too close to each other. Okay, so first of all we'll have to change probably the rotation because it is too much, and the scale is too big, I suppose. 1.2 at most. Okay, would be nice. Well, something like that. But still grass is too big. Yeah, you can still tweak things up if we want. For example, here we can set up 1, 1, 1, and here like 0.4. Okay. Yeah, and now it looks much better. Yes, so small grass objects looks much better than those bigger ones. Okay, and once again it depends on where you want to place those objects. Yeah, of course, increasing frequency would allow you to place more objects over here, something like that, still avoiding overlaps because I've set up, and we may add it somewhere here, for example inside the pond if we want, probably near the road. Nice. If we want to have too much of it, well, it is possible, yeah, but it depends on your preferences. It doesn't really matter whether we are using ProBuilder object or we are using Polybrush or any other object created in our scene, it will still work the same way. So basically we can add, scatter any object we want over any object we want, providing there is enough data to be scattered on, right? Well, there are enough geometries. Of course, it lacks, for example, a tree, probably, but it is bright enough to get the point. And last thing that we have here is called texture painting on meshes. Yeah, so basically right now we really can't do anything with that because we don't have any appropriate material that supports texture blending. Yeah, so where to get that material? Here exactly is the place where we'll use samples we downloaded previously. So if we go to samples, Polybrush, okay, the version, shader example, shaders, and we have two shaders. One lit texture blend and the one lit vertex color. So basically on the base of those two shaders, those two shader graphs, you can create any shader you want. Yeah, so basically here, the texture blend shader, if I can select it, press create material, okay. For example, let it be texture blend material, okay. And what does it allow us to do? Here, as we can see, we have possibility to import paste, let's say, several different textures. Yeah, albedo texture 1, albedo texture 2, etc, etc. So basically, if I right now press in paste in several textures, I have several of them prepared. Links for them will be in the descriptions. Okay, so for example, the first one let it be a grass. Why not? Second one would be gravel. Yeah, the color. And the next one could be ground. Yeah, something like that. And what it allows us to do right now. So we will of course need an object. Actually, we can try to duplicate our plane. Why not? The ground. I'll just create a copy of it in order to modify with textures. So I'll probably need to delete all those objects of grass right for now. Okay, so this ground, the second one, will have the material of texture blending and what it allows us to do. Now, if I'll go back to Polybrush and open this tool of texture paint, we can see those three different textures. Yeah? So what does it mean? If I have, for example, I'll use flooding. Yeah, so by default I don't know, I can use grass. Yeah, the strength of course to 1. As we can see, we have grass texture over here. Yeah, it's not that good because it's only color, it's only albedo. You can of course modify this shader graph in order to support much more options. Yeah, but for now we can add metallic, remove that, and increase or decrease glossiness. Yeah, but so for now, this should be fine. Yeah. So then we have the gravel, okay, and the brush. Will it allow me to paint? Yep. So once again, strength could be too much, and the size of it could be too much. Yeah. So in case you want to color an object, and of course it uses still texture painting and the same colors as before, so several different channels, you can look it up inside of the texture blend shader that we have here. And as you can see, I can't really move my cursor over another object because it turns off. Yeah, this is not really convenient, but it is what it is. Okay, so basically you can draw once again over any mesh you want. You just need to have an appropriate shader that allows you to use vertex painting. So if you want, once again, you can open up the shader graph and have a look at how it is implemented. We will not cover that today, but from what I can see, it is totally possible to combine not only colors, but normal maps, emission maps, roughness, metallics, or the masks, whatever you want. Yeah, so basically there is room for improvement. Okay, so we can probably get back to our default ground. So this is pretty much it concerning the functionalities of the Polybrush tool. As you can see, there are lots of different applications of it, and I'm pretty much sure that you can figure out even more that I can. So basically, this would be it for this video. So if you found it interesting or any helpful, give a like, post a comment, and of course subscribe. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.